go. We got it.
What's up, man?
What's happening? Is the background all right? And does it make you dizzy or something? Is it too
Yeah,
much?
I might get a headache here. So better than my mix, man. I'm stuck in the corner of the kitchen. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I made it down to the basement. The kids are in bed now, so hopefully they'll stay in bed.
nah, man. Thanks for hopping on. It's great connecting the other day, and thought we would continue our conversation really about what you're doing off the field, all your different business pursuits, entrepreneurship, and really some of your passions. And I guess unfortunately, this has given a lot of us time to think and reflect on stuff, and interested to catch up and hear what you've been up to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just gonna put my phone right here, stabilize it a bit.
Dude, with that backdrop and the phone moving.
Yeah, it might cause some headaches. Yeah, no, I think to give maybe some people a little bit of a background, you work at 76 Capital, which is kind of a fund that particularly kind of invests in sports, startups and tech and whatnot. And I think I came to you guys just because of my interest in kind of investing and, business, being a business oriented person. I reached out just like for the sake of it, is saying like, hey, this is me, I'm interested in, I like what you guys are doing, looking up around the area. There was really nobody really kind of primarily focused on kind of investing in like sports tech, and startups. And here you guys are, in Philly.
Yep.
And yeah, so next thing you know, we met up actually not far down the street at Nerd Street Gamers, which is one of the companies you guys have invested in, and right down the street from me. And it was nice to hit it off, and here we are. So I think for me, I think I've always been somebody that, first of all, at least in my sport, in soccer, in Europe, where it's the best of the best, kids go pro when they're 16, 17 years old.
Right.
I mean, I certainly didn't have that path, and I didn't think I was going to make it pro until I actually got to college. So I'm already 18, 19, and it wasn't then I finally saw I had potential. But before that, my family background, they always stressed education. Went to BC. I had options to leave school early, but my mother insisted that I get my degree. So I'm thankful for that.
Smart. Yeah.
Yeah. Thankful for that. So, mothers can always be a pain in the butt sometimes, but she was right on this, and I'm grateful for that. And I graduated from Boston College with a degree in finance, in business school there. So, I had always been an interest in there. My father worked in sales, still does. And, I would he tag along on some of his business trips growing up and kind of saw what he was doing. And, it's just something that always of interest to me. So, I think everything around us, whether it's restaurants or, this Nike sweatshirt that I'm wearing, it's all, based around business and how people, whether buy stuff, consumers, or, businesses sell things. So it's all like connected, and I'm just always been interested in those kind of transactions and numbers and stuff. So that's it. Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. How I got involved, and now, I'm on the other end of things, trying to kind of invest and be a part of that, because I know soccer doesn't last forever. So that's good. That's my second life, I guess.
No, that's really cool. So, how are you doing with everything? Obviously, you got the season going. You trained in Florida, came back up, and then it kind of quickly came to a halt, just as life's been pretty wacky for all of us here the last few weeks into months.
Yeah, these are surely unprecedented times. I mean, 2020 has been quite the year so far. But I think, what we're doing right now, I feel like is what a lot of people are doing, just kind of the new age of digital interaction, right? Through video and all that. So I think I'm thankful that so far, my businesses that I'm a part of haven't really been greatly impacted, but I'm well aware that that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of small businesses are suffering. I've invested in a restaurant startup called Pincho, based out of South Florida. And obviously they're struggling. And, I think, as well, the margins in the restaurant business are already tight to begin with. Yeah. But they're trying to do everything they can to kind of, get creative and unique and, with takeaway and kind of offering new deals on takeaway stuff and delivery options for families to kind of work around this. But it's going to have, this whole COVID-19 is having a huge impact on all types of businesses and even on real estate. And, who knows what the downfall is going to be at the end of the day when this is all said and done. But I think for me, it's always been important to diversify my portfolio. So I'm involved, all types of things, whether it's an art business, an Iconoclast based out of New York, or, like I said, the Pincho restaurant down in South Florida franchise, and as well as, real estate. I like real estate a lot. So I've got some properties sports tech, like, what 76 is involved in as well. Interests me just because I'm surrounded by it too, with all the data nowadays and stuff. All of it is just real interesting to me. And I think it's something for me as an athlete, a lot of times we get, there's that kind of, just being an athlete that people have in their mind, that we're just there to entertain you and that's all, stick to sports, and there's not much else around us, or that we're capable of.
Yeah, so on that point, I mean, we're fortunate at 76 Capital. We get to work with a variety of athletes and really get to see their passion off the field, off the court. Why is that, though? Why do you think so many athletes get labeled as just an athlete, or they should stick to their sport? Or because we think there's a really, the business space, entrepreneurship, and athleticism, and getting to the top of your space, like, it takes hard work and determination. So we see a lot of similarity. Like, what's your take from being, the true pro athlete?
I don't know where it initially comes from, It's just another one of those kind of typical stereotypes that we've been tagged with, I guess. I think that's changing. The narrative has shifted completely, when you see now guys, especially like NBA players and other NFL guys, that get paid these big contracts. So, sometimes it does take money to make money. I get that. But I think, they're just more powerful now, with the funds that they've created, the networks that they've engaged with, there's not just an agent managing them. They've been able to control their brand, and they realize how much power they hold in creating this brand and just kind of having the right people surrounding them, I think before, there was a great documentary on ESPN called Broke. I'm sure you watched it, right? So I think, kind of that's where that stereotype stems from. A lot of these athletes, maybe come from, tough neighborhoods, and, they want to always take care of their families and people who are riding their coattails, so to speak, and they get kind of stuck in that world, being too nice, and they don't really realize the long-term, they don't look so much into the future, they're just living the present and now. And, they spend left and right, and, it's they're maybe not the smartest with their money, right. So, I tend to toe that line between, kind of frugality, but also investing, into my future, my family's future. And, right. Knowledge is power for me. So it's just surrounding myself with the right people. Never been shy to ask questions or even get a no, not fear rejection. But I think, like you mentioned earlier, I think that we kind of share the same values, like on your end and me being an athlete. Like, we still have like that competitive drive, right? There's this like illusion that of like, whether you're invested in a startup, you become involved in it and you want to see them succeed, and you work hard and you do this, and there's that risk, and you do the same things as an athlete. It's kind of very similar principles. So I think that's what makes, on the other end of that stereotype, that's what makes us athletes kind of good entrepreneurs or good businessmen, right? We still have that drive to want to succeed.
Definitely. So I'm always curious, at what age do you think you really started to get into business? And I'm always, what was your first job? Where'd you start? You grew up in Jersey, you moved to Florida. What did you say by the time you were 10? What were some of the first things you did for
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I had with my friends down the block, the typical set up the lemonade stand, in the summer months down in Florida to get so hot, But I think actually I saw one of my friends comment on here on the chat. This guy Josh Molino, Josh. I would say that was one of my first jobs. Was working with his family. They had his mother had like a kids camp
Okay.
in the summertime. So I was like a camp counselor. That was kind of my first job, you know, and it just dealt with sports, you know, kids camp. You know, we'd take them in from morning to afternoon and just play all types of sports with them, keeping them busy in the summer months. And that was kind of my first kind of real job, I guess. It mixed sports, but it also required me to kind of learn the financial side of it, you know, seeing the flow of money, you know, coming in the summer, like with the packages and kind of we'd get sent out to like buy restock on the you know, like the drinks and the food, the meals and stuff. So we had to be kind of thrifty with how we spent our money and things like that. So because we had a budget, right? So yeah, just simple things like that, you know. But I think for the most part, everything came else from home, you know. My father, you know, just sitting down and just talking little like basic financial literacy type things, you know.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot through my father, I would say.
Got it. Got it. And I mean, when we were talking the other day, you said you knew kind of sophomore, junior, by your senior year of college, you knew you were going pro, obviously health. What do you think you would have done had you chose not to play soccer? Where would you see yourself today had you not, you know, you spent your entire career playing pro soccer and then having the opportunity to do business and really blend it, which I you know, commend you for.
Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't. I mean, I could have ended up anywhere, but I always envisioned myself, at least before I turned pro, like I was preparing myself to kind of, I guess, get a job like working out in New York City, you know, on Wall Street possibly. So right now I'd probably be freaking out like a lot of these guys are out there, seeing how volatile the
Yeah.
market has been these past couple of weeks. But no, I envision, you know, I don't know, some type of, I think initially, you know, either, you know, in real estate, because I do like real estate. So
Okay.
I guess being a property developer, something like that. So, but I think I
Yeah.
wouldn't change it for the world right now. You know, I'm glad soccer has paid off so far.
Yeah.
The experiences soccer has given me in my life, you know, family and everything, the traveling I've done has been unbelievable. But I think I've learned a lot of the business side of soccer as well, and the business side of sports in general. And that's something that I'm keen on tapping into, you know, now.
And do you think that's your curiosity, as you don't just take it, you know, you receive your contract, but you're curious, you know, the negotiation side, or, you know, whether it's the sponsorship or the advertising that the team goes through? And do you think it's really just you want to keep learning and find out more, or
Yeah,
what?
yeah, definitely. I think even, you know, I've been able to, you know, have certain relationships with even the ownership groups or things like that, where I can, you know, feel comfortable, you know, asking certain questions, or, you know, break out of my comfort zone and be a part of certain things. You know, even in my last negotiation, you know, I have an agent, yeah, and he does everything that I've asked him to do. But sometimes at certain points, you kind of take matters into your hands. You know, I've been in this business for over 12 years now, and you know, I kind of know the ins and outs. I know how things work. So, you know, sometimes I'm not afraid to cut out the middleman and just, you know, do things myself, because I do
Yeah.
feel comfortable doing myself, because I have kind of seen how things work, or I've kind of engaged myself in the process and know how things are running. And, you know, I'd rather at times, like how we are right now, I feel like sometimes it's easier to have direct communication instead of, you know, kind of weaving in and out or going through somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's always how I've tried to learn too about other things that are business dealings. You know, I'd rather be a straight shooter, and you know, I think that's a lot of things. That's what hampers some people. You know, is maybe they're scared of rejection or whatever, or a little bit shy.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can be that in the business world. You know, I think you have to
Sure.
be sometimes pretty brave and, you know, go for it. That's why everything's a risk, I guess.
When you were a younger player in the league, were there certain players that you spoke to about the business side, about investing? Were there certain guys that you looked up to? And then now that, you know, you're the captain of your team, I guess, you know, you got to say you're a veteran, right? Or are there some of the younger guys
I still got a
that,
baby
you know,
face, I
you're
feel
young,
like.
I
So,
know,
you know,
man,
keeps me
you're young
young.
for me, but No, there's some of the younger guys in the locker room that talk to you outside of the daily soccer stuff and are curious about what you're doing off the field.
Yeah, I think in the early days, not so much.
Okay.
I wouldn't really have these conversations with teammates in the beginning of my career. It would be more with, kind of adults, or even I'd reach out to my Boston college professors and, reach out to them, or, my father or close family friends. But I would say, like, in the past 5 years, like I said, where this narrative of athletes being businessmen too has like shifted, or even, the past 10 years, whatever. But definitely in the past 5 years, I've noticed it way more often, where, like, even when I used to play with the national team, the USA team, like, we'd get together and it would always kind of, like, some of the conversation would be like, oh, what project are you getting involved, or did you see that, or this, or what's this next startup that you've invested in, or, a lot of guys were more in touch with that kind of line of thinking. So, nowadays, I have like a good, probably like group of like 6 or 7 guys that I can confide in, that we always kind of reach out to each other and see what we're dwelling in, or what we're seeing, in different markets, whether it's out in LA or New York or down south, and just kind of exchange that info. And within my team and here in Philly, I think guys know that I am, they know my interest in art, so they ask about that. Or
you're not shy about putting it out there, but I think that's really smart how you've built your brand and you're true to who you are, and it's been really cool to get to see it.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of cool that guys in my team and, like, here in the union, ask about it, especially the younger guys, because, a lot of times, like, it still happens, where guys, they think they become pro, they sign their first contract, and I always warned them, it's always like they feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses, so they see the big Premier League games on TV, they see how those guys are living, and see that, well, everybody's got to buy like a designer bag, a designer this, a designer that. But I try to let them know, of course I like to buy my fair share of nice things, but once you spend on something like that, that you're not getting any of it back, why not try to invest in something that maybe is a good, calculated low risk thing that can maybe give you more money, 5-10 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the tough thing that we've talked about, and from, you've always been the best at your sport. You've always excelled, right? And you always feel like you're going to always be on to the next contract. Look, selfishly as a Philly fan, we're all excited that you got the extension, but I think every athlete thinks they're going to be on to their next contract. It'll be their larger contract, so on and so forth. And unfortunately, not every athlete sees their next deal or gets hurt, or someone, unfortunately, better comes along. And I think to that point, you do need to think through and save a lot more than, and you can't bank on your next deal. You can't bank on your next contract.
Yeah, that's another thing. Every sport, at least in this country, is so different. Like for soccer, at least, we have guaranteed contracts. NFL guys aren't. I think their PA needs to be better, I guess. But they can just release you, and you're not due what you thought you were going to make next year and what you were planning on, and all of a sudden, you're scrambling. But you can't. Yeah, you just have to be very weary. I tell the young guys all the time: you sign your first deal. That's the easy part, right? Like becoming a pro in our, where we are at our level. But it's that consistency. Like, can you keep performing to make sure you will get the next contract? And if you will get the next contract, it's going to be higher wages. It's not guaranteed either. So, it's being smart with your money, being smart with where you are now. I think. It's tough. I get it. It can be tough, thinking long term, because you are so kind of stuck living in the present and being in the moment. But you got to be comfortable with taking yourself out of that and thinking for the future and for your family. Especially the young guys. They're meeting girls now. They've made it pro. You might end up getting married with that girl, having kids. You got to think about your family too in the future. Are you gonna have enough money for that too? So, or putting your family in the best position to, be financially well off long term. So it can be tough, but that's something that, I guess guys like myself are willing to provide some of that information to guys, and they can see what I'm doing and how I'm living.
Yeah. And you're the player rep for the union. How's that experience been? Do you think that's been really helpful to yourself, or do you feel like you're really trying to just kind of give back and get the most for the players and do right by everyone?
I think I'm trying to do both. I
Okay.
think I'm trying to do both in the sense that I'm trying to do right by everyone. You know, for me, a lot like this, we just had a CBA negotiation this
Yeah.
past off season actually, and first of all, I've learned a lot in the process myself, which is good. You know, and learn more about negotiating tactics, strategies, this and that. But also, I'm trying to do good by just not my team, but the whole league in general, the players. I'm representing the players. So for me, a lot of these things don't really matter because I'm now a veteran, like you made me, old guy. So,
Yeah, I called you old.
so,
Nah.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
plan to play a lot more, a few more years,
Yeah,
obviously.
no, I hope so.
But I'm trying to set up the best deal for the guys that are coming up from the academy, so that, once they're done with their rookie deal, they'll have the chance to make that much more in their next contract. And, so we can have more free agency that's not so restrictive, so that, I've been very adamant about charter flights. So get those in there and just, just everything and anything in between, trying to get the best
Right.
deal. So it's been twofold, for me, a learning process and being involved and, like I said, different strategies and, reading and seeing numbers and deciphering that information and going through all that data and that it's been good for me, but also, I think I try to do what's definitely best for the league. I'm not worried about myself so much, in these negotiations.
Right.
It's more for everybody
Right.
else.
Got it. And you were talking about getting into real estate. I think it's a great space to be in. There's a lot to learn, but how did you get in? It can be a costly space to get involved in. So how do you feel is a good way to enter real estate? And what's worked for you and, what have you liked about investing in it?
Yeah, for me, I think like I said, I've always kind of been into it. My father, I guess he traveled a lot, and like I said, I tagged along a lot. We moved around a few times growing up, and I was always involved in their process of like whenever we went to go see a new house or new space or something, like they'd always ask me like, "Are you into what do you think about this and that?" Or like seeing different layouts of the house, and it's always intriguing to me. Like you can literally, like in Florida at least, where I grew up in Weston. You have it's a community of like, it's a gated communities, and they're all pretty much the same house on the exterior, same kind of facade, same looking type of thing, like suburbs, but to me, it's kind of cool how every home on the inside could be so unique and so different. And I always took a liking for that, I guess, and that kind of got my interest in real estate. And now investing in it, it's like you said, I think it's not easy, it's tough, but if you do your due diligence and, look at numbers and stuff, for me, it's always been, for now at least, it's just been mostly single family homes and invested in a couple lots where I feel like I can develop them they're already zoned a specific way that I can build on it, whether it's 2, 3, 4, multifamily properties, townhomes and stuff. So, but I think I haven't gotten into like the multi-family property yet, which I would like to. But I think real estate for me has always been, it's a hard asset, and I think there is some protection. And when the market is like this, when it goes down, just in the sense that, demand for living areas is always going to be there, especially in the markets that I'm mostly in, which is Philly and South Florida and Fort Lauderdale. And I always try to make sure, that I get a good price on it and that the mortgage or the tenant, whoever's going to be occupying that space, is going to be a lot more than my mortgage,
Sure.
So I think doing that, those numbers is good. And like I said, the markets that I'm currently in, where I have all my properties in Philly and Fort Lauderdale, those are markets with considerable like job growth. Great schools, and here in Philly, we have great schools in the area, Drexel, Temple, UPenn. So, you're always going to have students, people moving here, at least here in Philly as well. The cost of living is cheaper than New York City. I know a lot of people who actually live in New York City, which I'm sure you do too, but they live out here. The commute is almost just the same as, driving across from Jersey. So, you're kind of protected, I guess, in that sense that in the recession like maybe we're entering now, where people are still going to occupy those properties, and you're going to still get rent from them. Your mortgage will be paid off, and you'll make some money and the value of the property goes up.
Right. What were some of the early lessons you learned, or what are some of the harder things about real estate that you went through, and you don't want to make that mistake again?
It would just be about like kind of, don't get caught up in the HGTV, like fixer upper type stuff. That stuff is a lot harder than they make it seem.
Right.
I think I love watching HGTV and seeing all that stuff, but I tried kind of my hand in that like quick fixer upper type thing, but then you just get caught up in finding things that you had no idea were there. If you just want to try to quick flip a home, it's not easy. It's not as easy as they make it seem. So there was one situation where obviously the cost went up, and then you get stuck if you don't have the right people around you and different contractors, and they might not be the best, and all of a sudden you have a change order in here and there, and the costs are flying to the roof. So I guess that'd be my only thing, is I would be cautious to get involved if you're just kind of doing a fixer-upper thing and think you can just make money like that.
Right. A lot harder than it looks.
Oh yeah,
definitely. And on the art side of thing, obviously, people follow you on the different social media platforms. You're definitely passionate about art. It's one of the things you're really into, you and your wife. But you're also on the business side of it. So how did you blend, your passion and business, and what's going on with the art? What's going on with the art?
No. So the art, I took, like in college actually, I took some electives like in art history and in the art. So I kind of started getting an interest then. And then I would say it wasn't until I got to France in 2012 where I really started getting into it. I was surrounded by people who actually were into art as well. I lived in a building where there was kind of an art collector there, and I just started getting more interested into it and would go to the art fairs and stuff that were there in France. And obviously, France is such a wonderful country for the arts, and from the cultural aspect of it, and going to Paris and visiting all the museums there and everything, it's just amazing. And I would say right before the World Cup, I met these two guys who are now my partners at Iconoclast in New York, Sky and Nickel. One of them, Nickel, was the manager for Lupe Fiasco, which is a hip hop artist, and Sky was also doing work with Futura 2000, Futura 2000, who was a New York City kind of street artist, graffiti artist in the past, and has now transitioned kind of, in the urban art, fine art world. And they did stuff for U.S. Soccer. And they're big soccer guys. So we just had this connection right away, as a player, as an athlete going to the World Cup in Brazil, and they're doing projects, collaborations with U.S. Soccer, with their artists. I got to meet them in New York in Times Square, and then we just hit it off. And ever since then, I let them know about my interests, and they got to know me. We got to know each other, and literally maybe like a year after, they were working out of another firm, and they had been wanting to start up their own agency. And I said, yeah, sure, I'm in. Let's do it, And so me and one of my other teammates, actually one of my best friends, Jeff, we got involved, and it's four of us as the partners there at this art agency in New York.
So what do you guys do? What does that? What's that mean?
Yeah. So now, instead of just me collecting art, I'm also involved kind of, obviously not in the day-to-day part of the business, but our agency, we're like a creative agency that curates relationships between the artists, the creatives, and commercial partners. Whether that be large corporations, like the Nike or the Googles or Facebooks. We're the kind of the middle ground for that, to happen. So we've done many cool projects with different artists and different companies, whether it's installations or like with Google and the artist Nina Chanel, like they did this interactive installation in a building, but also had these iPhone cases with her art on the back of it and stuff that people could buy, and just things like that, where we kind of give back to the artists and let them kind of take creative control of certain maybe advertisements or things like that. It's pretty cool.
No, it's really cool. So are you artistic yourself? Do you actually get your hands in? No.
I'm not. I'm not. I
Okay,
can't say
okay.
I'm that creative at all. I'm not. I'm not artistic at all.
Yeah. But you enjoy it when it comes together
But I
and
enjoy it.
when that finished product is out there.
Yeah, yeah, and I also enjoy the whole process. I think art kind of similar to maybe like soccer, and in the fact that it's like it's subjective, right? I mean, like somebody's gonna love what's behind me, and somebody's gonna hate what's behind me. It's like you have your favorite player, and other people think that your favorite player isn't that good. It's cool, but just here, with art, there's it crosses so many boundaries. There in one piece you can have it's covering like socioeconomic issues, or it's a political kind of take on something, but just seeing like when you really feel the art and see it for what it is and see where the artist is coming from, there's a whole like another world out there, that's more than just what you see.
Right.
So I
Right.
think that's kind of cool.
Got it.
There's so many layers to it.
So yeah. And then the other area we spoke about, your family's also involved in the coffee business.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we got the real estate, kind of the startups in tech, art, and coffee. So how does that all come
Yeah,
together?
coffee. Yeah, I'm Alejandro Bedoya. It's not an American name really. So, both my parents are in are Colombian. They're from Colombia,
Yeah.
and in Colombia, my father's side, he's got a cousin. Well, we have a finca. Many Colombians would know what a finca is. Kind of like a farm, a barn, I guess, farmhouse. In Colombia, and next door to ours is my cousins, and they're the ones that have the big coffee, plantation, if you will,
Okay.
big coffee farms, and that's where we get our coffee from. So yeah, the coffee business we kind of started in probably almost 4 years ago, where I had this visualization that we were gonna start up our own family coffee shop business in South Florida, where I'm from, in Fort Lauderdale. So actually, with the World Cup bonus, I bought like a piece of land in an area where I envisioned this coffee shop business going. I just saw Kellen Rowe. When is the winery coming? Soon, man. Soon. Uh,
That's next, man.
I hope. Yeah, yeah.
Little time, yeah.
I'm taking another big investment though. But yeah. So that spot, I kind of invested in that lot, because one, I saw potential from a real estate standpoint, where that area was going to kind of change a bit and, become a hotspot in Fort Lauderdale, but also with the expectation that we would set up shop there for a coffee shop. But I think, like you said, there's always a little risk in starting up businesses. And what I've learned a lot is, since I'm not based in Fort Lauderdale, there's a lot of governance issues and, a lot of red tape that you have to deal with city officials, commissioners, county, and all this stuff. So we've encountered a lot of obstacles, but as much as I would have liked to be up and running, I will say that sometimes this was like a blessing in disguise, because for our business, I feel like would have been really, impacted very hard financially during these times if we were up and running,
Right.
or in the process in the middle of construction, so, I think we will hopefully eventually get up and running, but having that coffee farm in Colombia allows us to kind of not have to deal with, the middleman, where our margins could be a little bit higher than other coffee shops. And we're in the specialty coffee business, so I think people would really enjoy. I think people know that Colombian coffee is one of the best coffees in the world, and they would really enjoy what we have to offer them.
Nice. So Philly has a lot of good coffee. Do you have a couple favorites? I don't want to make you. Where are you usually
Yeah,
drinking your coffee from?
Yeah, Philly's got a lot of good spots. I mean, obviously La Colombe, Philly based, and what Todd Carmichael and JP have built over there is amazing. But other ones that I go to, like Menagerie in Old City.
Yeah.
There's Reanimator as well. They have good stuff. I mean, Saxby's, obviously they're pretty big as well. But Yeah, Elixir is also really good.
Yeah, on
Yeah, I like Elixir. You're a coffee guy too, right?
yeah. I think you know, you kind of work that early morning, late night. You need that caffeine, and now with the little ones, it's so
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah, you
definitely.
need coffee. You need coffee.
Yeah. So with all those passions, and then you're able to turn them into business opportunities. Um, what else have you gotten involved in, or where else, you know, what else do you think you might be next for you, or do you think it's really continuing to grow this really big platform that you've built for yourself?
Yeah, I think like the ones that we've talked about, I think those have been more kind of like calculated risks, like areas where I feel comfortable. But I think like when me and you got in touch, what we talked about is kind of me wanting to get more maybe into investing into like sports tech, you know. That's a space where I haven't really hit it off. I've tried a couple times, you know, a couple investments that haven't panned out.
Hmm.
And I, you know, like I think you'll be the first to say too, you know, tech is high risk, high reward, you know. I
Yeah,
think
definitely.
there's so many cool, like, or good looking tech startups out there, but, you know, it's all about the execution. And when you get the execution right, you know, you're talking about like 20 times and all this stuff here, returns and all this, but it's very hard, you know.
Yeah.
So, but being involved in sports and now, you know, kind of having that experience and um, I feel like there's a space for in the soccer world, soccer tech world, in this country at least,
Okay.
for more investment to be made in that area.
So what
Just
was it like, you know, the last, you know, 10, 12 years you have coming into the pros? Um, what was the tech like then compared to now, data, analytics? Kind of describe those early days for you versus now. Obviously, you're wearing sensors, you're training with them. The coaches have, you know, the instant feedback. A lot of players are wearing the sleep monitors. And so what's your take on all this? Do you think it's all good? I mean, especially representing the team side, do you think there's some potential pitfalls here? Or... Sorry, that was like 5 questions.
no, yeah. That was fun. No, I think data's, I mean, all that analytics and data and all that stuff has changed drastically since I started, you know. I don't even think much of it really existed when I was at BC, you know. I remember we would just resort to watching video and film
Okay.
and just seeing things like that. But now, I mean, you have all types of data, you know. On Twitter, you have Opta and all these companies that are, you know, tracking every single pass, your movements. I mean, they got us wearing sports bras. I think in all the sports now, sports bras that are, you know, analyzing, you know, every acceleration, your speed, how high you're jumping, you know, your movements, and you know, how far you've ran in a single game. So that's what I mean. Like, just that's why I reached out to you guys initially, just because I've been wanting. I've seen how much this space has grown, and I see the potential there for at least in the soccer world. You know, obviously we're not quite up there yet with the big four, other sports, but it's tremendous potential, I feel like. And with data, you know, data is interesting, right? Because while it's wonderful and it's great, I do think that still it can be flawed. Um, it can be, you know, numbers can be rearranged to suit a certain narrative at times or a certain agenda. Um, so, you know, I've seen it myself in, you know, in various instances maybe where, you know, you would think a number that is tied to a specific player, it should be counted as a good thing, but somebody else sees it differently because it doesn't suit their style of play, so to speak. So
Like the coaches, the management, that type, where the
yeah, like
player's
you
putting
would
up
think
numbers
like,
that
yeah, that's very
you're
good.
impressed with, but
Right. Just because depending on how you want to play the game, right? Because there are different tactical approaches to a game. So whether you're a high pressing team, or maybe you just want to sit back and defend, or maybe, you know, you want to play this certain setup that these numbers maybe don't make sense in that system, but they do very well make sense in another system. So, you know, it's data, you know, you can use it for however
right.
you see fit, but obviously it's for the better, I believe. But for me as an athlete, you know, I can sit here and be like, all this, you know, gambling companies, no, betting is going to be legal probably in every state, you know, just, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah.
So how do we,
We think so. Yeah.
yeah, how do we as players and how do I monetize this, or can monetize these opportunities for the athletes, right? Because they're going to want to use all our data, right? So when does it become like a private versus public, like all this stuff type of issues, right? So it's going to be very interesting to see how all these data companies get involved, and how like even how our own data that we're wearing, that we're providing, how are we going to see some of that money that is being
Right.
distributed to all these gambling companies to set odds, or for teams to get to know more about us, or for whatever reasons that they may
Right.
use that data.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's got me, got my wheels turning.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, as tough as these times are currently, sports will be back, and we think at 76 Capital they will be bigger than ever. I think it's, people are just thirsting for it at the moment.
Oh, we've
Gambling
seen just how
gambling's
much
gonna have
sports does to it, right? Like how
it's
much everybody
it's
misses
crazy,
sports.
right?
Like on the weekends, you don't know what to do almost.
Yeah. Um, but we think the sports betting aspect is going to be massive, no doubt. And you're right; it's already legal in 21 states. It's less than 2 years here since the overturning of PASPA. But you're right; it's your data, and I agree. I think you should be able to monetize it in a certain way, and will it be done via the league? But it's going to be pretty wild. But there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and that's really how we see it. We're always looking for the next, the next innovation, the next entrepreneur to come in and disrupt. But the next 10 years is going to be about sports, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, being in soccer, you've seen it yourself. You're a soccer guy yourself too, and like, it's a sport that continues to grow in this country. That's why I always say there's so much potential in that space, because you do have, all, like baseball is it's a sport that's only around like all data, right? And analytics. But with soccer, it's just even more and more and more into data. I can speak for myself in our club at the Union now. When I first got here, it wasn't so much data driven as it is now. But we have terms now that we base off certain training sessions or gameplay around that I had never heard of before. And, you'll have like, I think it's reverse packing or packing data. And that to me I had no idea what that even meant last year. And now I know everything about it.
And now
It means how many players you bypass with one single pass. How many players do you eliminate with a pass? So that's great data, actually. That says a lot. Like, you're not just making passes backwards or side to side. You're actually taking risks to play forward and connecting those passes and creating good opportunities for your team. So yeah,
right.
It's interesting. And, like I said, you just got to be careful with data. And then with all this AI stuff coming in as well. Because they're not always perfect.
No, it's definitely a work in progress here. So for the players in the league across sports, if they're looking to get into business, innovation, maybe put some of their money into play, what's some of the advice you've had? What's some of the lessons you've learned? What do you recommend out there?
Yeah, just due diligence. Like I said, and if you're wanting to do that, like I said, don't be shy. Don't be afraid to reach out to people, contact people. You'd be surprised by how many actually, while you're a professional athlete, they're more than happy to be a mentor, to be helpful, to guide you in the right direction at least. Right. And then once you get something, an opportunity, you'll get maybe like an offer, or you'll get a deck, you'll have a look over it, and then just be brave enough to ask questions and to read through things properly, or have somebody else read it over for you, from a legal standpoint. I didn't know what a convertible note meant when I first got stuff, but it was just asking people what it meant, or Googling stuff. Like, this is a perfect time now, like while we're stuck inside, to become more knowledgeable, and to read up on things and educate yourselves on what certain terms mean and stuff. And that's just what I did. I don't know anything. I still don't know a lot, but I'm learning on the wing and as I go.
Right. But you said it. I mean, you're smart enough to know what you don't know, and how there's others out there that want to help you, that want to work with you.
Yeah, that's what I've
Going up.
learned. You know? Like I said, like, I had no problem reaching out to you guys, and just getting involved. I think, and what I don't know, I don't know, and I'm gonna do everything I can to start to get to know what it's all about and what it means and how it will impact me or the risk that's there. And like I said, I always use the term calculator risk because I am
Sure.
kind of, I wouldn't say I'm risk adverse, but I'm just, I want to make sure I know what I'm getting into. And if I can financially, what the impact it will have on me and my family. So.
Right. No, we've seen it firsthand at 76 Capital. We've been fortunate to get to work with athletes, and it's incredible. I mean, anyone will take your call, will answer an email, want to grab a coffee with you, as we said. And on top of that, you're going around North America. You're in the best cities at the best hotels. It's a business person's dream, really, what you got to do on your business trips. And so, I think that's a different way to look at. Obviously, you have the training and you have the prep that needs to get done and the sleep, but there's also time to carve out business opportunity in everywhere you go.
Yeah, there is, absolutely. I'm not to toot my own horn, but I just got accepted into that Harvard, business school, doing that crossover into business program. That's something I initially saw. I followed Dwayne Wade, and I saw him do it a couple of years ago. And that piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, how did he get in there? And how did he do that? And you find out that all you have to do is apply online, and Anita, the professor there, will accept you. And that's something, a program that continues to grow, and it's great for any athlete. I recommend it to anybody if you're interested in business or want to learn more. And it's just as easy as applying online. And they've expanded their acceptance into the program. So it's something else that, I read all these case studies now, and you learn all these different strategies and different ways of seeing business. And it's just like you said, with all this time and downtime we have when we're traveling on the road and this and that, I mean, you have so many options available to you to engage yourself in and educate yourselves even more.
Right. So is that Harvard program athletes only, or are you blended across?
This one in particular is athletes only, this program that cross over into business. And it's all types of athletes, from all types of sports, and even ballet and gymnasts and a lot of other kind of areas, but yeah, I think it's great,
I think it's amazing. I think, like you said, that's a great way to learn without necessarily having to invest right away or trying to dive into something, but continue that education for yourself. Is it all done remotely, or are you actually on the grounds as well at Harvard?
It's mostly done remotely, but you can also attend. I attended a class there in the beginning, and you have the option there. I mean, it sucks now at the times we're living in. I don't think that opportunity is going to be possible to be able to pop on campus and into a class anymore. But you had that option too, to partake in in MBA classes and stuff there, which is an amazing opportunity as well. But I will say also in business, we all know that, it's what you make out of it. It's a lot of it's connection based. You have to reach out to people. You have to make these connections, and the more you do, the more people the more people you reach out to learn from or to engage with, the more opportunities you're going to have. As simple as.
Definitely. Well, no, look, I'm get you out of here. A couple quick questions. Got to talk a little soccer. I know everyone watching, all the questions keep popping up. So growing up, favorite soccer player, and also who is your favorite athlete, non-soccer as well?
Well, my favorite athlete non-soccer was Michael Jordan, and because of him, that's why that was my dream school was UNC, Chapel Hill. But my favorite soccer player growing up, I would say I was a big Arsenal fan. So that team, the Invincibles, was, they had Thierry Henry and Robert Pires and, all those players. But I love Zinedine Zidane and the original Ronaldo. Just seeing them, they were unbelievable players. Gotcha.
So a couple favorite goal you've ever seen, and then what's your favorite goal you've ever scored? It can't be both. You can't. Your favorite scene can't be the same.
Well, I know what my favorite goal is. My favorite goal that I've seen like just on TV or like
Yeah,
live.
I mean, no. It can be, yeah, it can be a tape. It can be historic. It could be whatever you want. It could be Ronaldo's bicycle. It could be Rooney's bicycle. It could be.
Yeah. Um, that's a good question. I don't know. There's been so many amazing goals. I think I remember Zidane scored a goal outside the box where the ball was just way up in the air and he volleyed it off the air like in just like upper 90. Like the technique to do that is just unbelievable. And that was a player that I really idolized. So I just remember that. I mean, there's so many goals though. Thierry Henry scored obviously a bunch of stunners. My favorite goal would be like obviously I think the goal I scored against PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, in Paris. I shot the ball probably from like 30 yards out, maybe, just rock it into the top left corner.
Yeah.
Another goal that my favorite goal that I've seen would have to be like the one Clint Dempsey scored in the World Cup in Brazil, our opening goal against Ghana in the opening game.
Yep.
It was
No
like
doubt.
the first minutes in the game, and he
Yeah.
scored, and I literally like if he would have kicked it like a yard to the right, I could have been there to tap it in. I was that close to seeing it go in, and it was just like, I mean, just the I can't even explain the emotions you felt at that time. It was just like wow, out of body experience.
Definitely. No, that's amazing. Um, and then other, non-soccer, what's favorite sports to watch if you're not playing soccer? What's some of the other sports that you've always been part of and enjoyed?
Yeah, I would say NBA. NBA is by far my other favorite sport for sure. And I think there's a lot of similarities between our sports, soccer and basketball in terms of like the vision and stuff like that and tactics. Growing up, one of my favorite players was Jason Kidd.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then, Steve Nash. I always like those kind of ball handlers. Steve Nash obviously is a big
he's
soccer.
great soccer player.
Yeah, he's a great soccer player. I mean, he can do tricks and stuff with the balls with the ball that I can't even do. I mean, he's talented as well. So, but just seeing him like how that's how I played basketball growing up. Because I was fast and I had all this high energy. I would just dribble around the whole court and dribble along the baseline, and nobody would catch me, and I'd just be dishing off these crazy passes and just making all these assists. So, yeah, I liked him a lot. Yeah, and obviously, I mean, LeBron's just a beast. But yeah, I enjoy watching NBA basketball, and obviously I mean NFL football, and I'm involved in all those fantasy football stuff. Um, Somebody just asked if I like hockey. I do like hockey. I mean, I grew up in Jersey. I like those Devils teams with
Oh
Niedermacher
man,
and Scott Stevens and
yeah,
all those guys. Martin Brodeur, of course.
right, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just
Um,
sports fans all around.
yeah. And then you played in, globally one of the biggest rivals in all of sport, but Celts Rangers. What was that like? Like, eh, I like, what is that experience?
Yeah, I think when you try to explain it, I mean, you just it never does it justice, I guess. But I think an old firm derby, I think for people that don't know, it's Rangers Celtic in Scotland. Um, there's just way more to it than just soccer. It's political, it's religious. One side is Protestant, the other side is more Catholic. Um, One side, on the other side, the opposite ends of the political spectrum as well. So there's just so much that goes into it. Obviously, it's changed and maybe it's a little bit tapered down now, not as intense as it was in the old days, but still it gets intense, it gets hyped, and fans really go at each other. But the atmospheres in those games are incredible. I mean, you can't even hear yourself on the field. You're trying to shout to other directions or stuff like that. It's incredible, the atmosphere. So I remember my friends telling me they went out there and they came out to the game that was at Celtic at Parkhead, and they were telling me they had to go through like um, kind of like a border wall, for lack of a better wall, like two border walls, and they're walking in between there, and they're just seeing things being tossed over, being drenched with waters and whatever stuff that was being thrown
Yes.
over, and hot dogs, and just people banging on the walls, and they were like fearing for their lives. But that's just it's just a passion. Soccer fans are so passionate, and this game means so much to these fans, and it provides for an incredible atmosphere. So it's an awesome, you know, if anybody loves soccer and wants to experience one of those, you know, I know a lot of football fans here, they travel to different college football stadiums to experience those atmospheres. I think that's one of those atmospheres for a soccer fan that you'd have to experience.
Definitely, definitely. And I know you're an Arsenal fan. The Liverpool run that they've have you? It's like nothing that's any.
I just saw my friend Mo comment Rangers. He was my teammate at Rangers.
Oh, okay.
And he was one of the lucky ones that scored a goal against Celtic, a game winner too. That's why he's a legend out there. So I can't imagine what that was like. That must have been amazing. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, just describe. I mean, how do you look at this run Liverpool's been on? And
yeah, I mean that's another thing. It's amazing what they've done. I mean, they hadn't even lost the game until just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
But just to be able to do that is at a league like the Premier League, you know, the Premiership, where it's you have he got me my assist on my first goal. He made me well aware of that. Yeah, I remember that. I think it really is amazing. You know, the Premier League's so competitive. I mean, you look at the other top 4 or 5 teams, you know, typically, you know, Arsenal, or not, I'm an Arsenal fan, that's why I said it first. Like Man City and you know, Chelsea, Tottenham's, the Arsenal teams, and they're just, I mean, to be able to go up against all those teams and not lose to them, you know, get a draw, and I don't even know how many points they're in the lead, like 20 points.
They could have had it done by now, but
it's just crazy. Just crazy.
Yeah.
So it really is crazy, you know. I don't understand how they've been able to do it, but it's a credit to their coach and their players, you know, because they have to play so many games. They play cup games, they play Champions League games. So to maintain that level of consistency is incredible.
Gotcha. And so I was over in Leeds a few weeks back, and you know,
that's a great club.
Great club. They should move up. They're on top of the charts, right? Like, how do you think relegation should be handled if the season gets short and heaven forbid, like EPL doesn't finish out? Like, do you think there's few teams should move up and then they just have a larger Premier League, or you know, what do you think is fair? Or just and replay the season? Some big decisions there.
How they're going to handle that? I have no idea. I mean, Premiership, obviously, Liverpool's already kind of won the league. I mean, I think I saw Man United guys saying it should be voided. They should replay. But no, I think for promotion and relegation, those are such key battles. Like if the league doesn't continue, I think they have to have set up like a playoff structure like they do for those 3 teams or 6 teams, you know, to kind of battle it out and see who who goes down and who moves up. Because as we all know, that, you know, for promotion, I think that's a big payday for those clubs.
Sure.
You know, I think I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, something like $200 million or something it's worth to them or something. It's just absurd, you know, with their TV rights deal and everything they got going on there. So yeah, even if the whole league won't continue play on, at least for those top teams that are in contention, they should have like some type of little playoff format.
Definitely.
At some point.
And so bringing it back here, are you allowed to train at the complex? Are you allowed to receive coaching, or what's going on in for you right now?
Yeah, so an update on that is just they've extended the moratorium, I think, till April 3rd for now, the training moratorium. So that means we can't access the facility. Nobody can go there. Nobody can go to the training fields, nothing. So we're just getting training workouts to do at home, you know. Some people were able to take some gear from the gym there, from the facility equipment. I'm lucky that I got a neighbor who's like a big CrossFit guy, and he's built out his whole basement, where I'm in my basement now, but he's built out his basement into a whole gym.